Louise Hay film, Cheryl Richardson interview, take one.
Very good.
So early on in my life, probably in my early to mid-20s, I was living like a lot of people do, fairly unconsciously, but not aware of my unconsciousness, just kind of going through life and often feeling as though life was happening to me, that I was a victim to what was going on in my life, or that the things, that the places in my life where I was unhappy, whether it was in a relationship or where I was living or in my job, had nothing to do with, had less to do with what I was doing and more to do with just sort of the circumstances of life. And I started to be introduced to looking at the world in a different way. For example, through Louise's book, You Can Heal Your Life, which was very influential to me early on. What a lot of people don't know, I actually have as a side story, a funny little story about Louise that nobody really knows. And that is that when I was probably 24 or 25 years old, I volunteered for an organization called Interface in Cambridge, Mass. That was considered the East Coast Esalen. You may remember that. And it's a place where people like Deepak Chopra would come, and Bernie Siegel, got his sort of start there. And I was volunteering there, and I was volunteering because I was really interested in this whole self-help field, and recovery was a big thing at the time. And Louise Hay was coming to speak for Interface. She was coming to a hall in downtown Boston, and I had read You Can Heal Your Life. And I was really taken by two things. Number one, the fact that she was teaching from her own experience, and she was so honest about her life in the book. I was really engaged by that. But also the practical nature of the book, that you could actually do something with it. You could look up and see, oh, I have this physical ailment, and therefore this might be going on. And I appreciated the the fact that it was interactive. And so I was really taken by her work, and so I asked if I could be the volunteer that would drive to the airport to pick her up and to take her back to the hall. Now, nobody knows this. It's really ironic, actually. Here I am today, a Hay House author and a speaker, and Louise doesn't even know this. She probably doesn't even remember, but I remember driving to the airport. It was in the dead of winter, and it was freezing. And so this is one of the first people who has really touched my life in a significant way and has begun the opening to the belief that, wow, maybe there's something more to life than meets the eye. Like maybe there's something that I'm doing in my life that's creating what's happening, and not just the fact that life is happening to me. So I drive to the airport. It's freezing cold. I get there, and of course her flight is delayed. And it's delayed for about 3 hours. And I sit in the airport, as this like young, excited fan, who just can't wait to meet her. And I'm, every time they say, the flight will be in 20 minutes, I'm like, okay, and I'm fixing myself and hoping that I look really smart, and hoping that I don't look too eager, although I'm sure I just look like a bumbling idiot just waiting like this little girl. And I remember the flight finally came. It was probably at 1 o'clock in the morning, and she had long hair, and she came down the jetway. She was walking down the jetway, and I was watching her, and she came out like a queen. And I just I sat there speechless, like, I can't believe this is really Louise Hay, and I'm going to meet her. And she's looking around, and I'm just so taken by her that I forget that I'm supposed to stand up and go, hi, I'm your volunteer. And eventually I did that, and she was very gracious and got in the car and drove her back, and then went to pick her up at the hotel the next night to take her to the venue where she was going to speak. And I just remember she just had such a presence about her way back then that she still has today. And that night when I heard her speak, that, along with some other events that occurred during that time, was the awakening when I thought, wow, there's something about the way I think that may be influencing what's happening in my life. And so somebody had said to me, and I don't remember who it was some teacher, had talked about how, there is this power greater than us at work in the world. And, one of the ways you can test it is, one of the ways you can test how our thinking partners with this greater power, and in that partnership we can manifest things in our life. And one of the ways you can test it is very simple. Just take a little yellow sticky note and write down 2 or 3 things that you'd really like to have in your life. And then keep that sticky note in view so that you see it all the time. You don't focus on it too hard, but you just keep it in your consciousness. And so I thought, yeah, this is a bunch of baloney, but I'll give it a try. I'm willing to try anything. So I take the little yellow sticky note, and I write. I specifically write out, because they said you have to be very specific about what you want, don't be general. So I write exactly the kind of computer that I wanted. I was a young writer, you know, and wanted, back then it was a big deal to get a computer with a word processor on, you know, a word processor on it. And so I specifically wrote the kind of computer and the kind of software and the kind of word processor that I wanted. And then I put down that I wanted to travel. And this person had said, by the way, if there's certain things you want, make sure you put the word free in front of them, like make it fun. So I wrote free travel. And there was a third thing, I don't remember what it was, but this was in November. About a month later, for Christmas, my boss at the time, I was working for an entrepreneur as an administrative assistant, my boss gave me the exact computer that I had written down on the yellow sticky note as a Christmas gift. And I remember when I opened the box and I saw what it was, and I saw it happened to be something I had worked on, a system I had worked on for him, and I saw what he had given me, I thought, oh my God, what if this actually works? And then I went, nah, it can't possibly, it's just a coincidence. And I said, the heck with it, and, you know, threw it away. But then 2 weeks later, a dear friend of mine who worked for a large Fortune 50 company called me and said, hey, guess what? I won the top salesperson award in my company, and it's a free trip to Boca Raton to stay in the presidential suite of the Boca Raton Resort Hotel. Now, I didn't even know where Boca Raton was. But she said, you know, I can bring a guest with me, want to come with me. It won't cost anything, and we'll get to stay in the presidential suite. And that's when I went, okay, give me that little sticky note again. Maybe there's something to this, you know. And sure enough, and that was a very powerful experience for me. You know, I've since grown up a lot since then, and I don't see the universe as Santa Claus, where you just sort of write things down and they happen. There's a lot more to it than that. However, it was my commitment to be awake, to become more conscious, and my willingness to actually think about what I wanted. You know, that experience gave me a visceral sense of what it was like to be the master of my own destiny instead of feeling like the victim. Or instead of feeling like I was at the effect of the world, maybe I had something to do with this as well. And so, you know, many, many years later, I'm 25 years older, and I realized that the gift of that little sticky note was the recognition, the spark of recognition that I have a lot more to do with what happens in my life and in the lives of the people around me than I ever realized. And therefore, I need to be very responsible about that power, and it's my duty to use it. Some of the challenges I see with the purple, some of the challenges I see with purple.
I have lots of issues.
Purple really bothers me, okay? There's something about purple. Don't get me started, because I'll do a whole Saturday Night Live riff. Thank you. Okay, I get it. Okay. That was great. Some of the challenges that people are faced with are the same kinds of things, same challenges I've been faced with. Impatience, a lack of clarity. So let's start there with a lack of clarity. Most of us think in generalities. I hate my job, I want a new job. Okay, that's great. That's a great place to start. But what are you looking for? Like getting specific, knowing what you want. A lot of people know what they don't want, but they don't necessarily know what they want. So really taking the time to clarify what it is you want, like really investing the time in that. It's amazing to me. We're so busy that we don't really put a lot of time and energy into really sitting down and saying, what's working in my life? What isn't? What do I want to change? And then specifically looking at what I want to change. So clarity, you know. And then another obstacle is just not knowing what to do. Like a lot of times, we're missing information about what the next step might be in terms of the action equation of affirmations plus actions equals miracles, right? A lot of times we're missing information about what to do, how to take action, but we call it something else, like I must be afraid, that's why I'm stuck, or I'm sabotaging my success, that's a big one. That's why, you know, my intentions aren't happening for me, or that's why I'm stuck. You know, I have a fear of success. That's why I'm stuck. When really, a lot of times, it's quite simple. People just don't know what to do next. That's where the profession of coaching has been so helpful, because if you say to me, you want to write a book, you know, believe me, you're going to talk to me about, you know, how you're afraid you have nothing important to say, or it's all been said before, and you think that's what's keeping you stuck, but the truth is you don't know that, oh, I have to write a book proposal. Great. What does that look like? Oh, you know what? There's a book out there called How to Write the Perfect Book Proposal. And if you read it, it will show you what it looks like. And then you can actually do it. What I've found that's so wonderful and resilient and encouraging and inspiring about humanity is we will take actions when someone just helps us to know what it is we need to do. And another important obstacle, I think, is isolation. We're lonely. And we need each other. You know, we came to this planet together for a reason. And I think it's a lack of support and an inability to ask for help that often keeps us stuck. So you may have an intention, I want to write a book. You finally get the information about what it is you need to do, but then you get scared along the way, because we get scared. And who's there to hold your hand or to say, you know what, it's okay. You know, yes, you can do this. Just like let's break it down into an even smaller step so that you stay moving in the right direction instead of allowing yourself to be stuck. And, you know, by the way, don't go to the hardware store for milk. Make sure you turn to people for support who are really going to support you. Because a lot of us, when we start doing those things to honor our soul or to express our creativity, those are really vulnerable acts. You know, the things that we intend or that we affirm for our lives are those things that are deeply important to our soul, and so they're vulnerable. And too often we turn to people who just squash them, you know, or who tell you why it isn't going to work, or why that's a crazy affirmation, or that's a crazy intention. That's called going to the hardware store for milk. You want to go to the people who are really going to hold your hand on the journey and say, hey, I'm right there with you. So those are some of the obstacles.